Welcome to LovexRomancexRevenge, the home of love stories that didn't stay soft, romance that turned dangerous, and betrayals that demanded a price. Few believe love can heal, but betrayal can change everything. You're in the right place. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, like this story if dark romance speaks to you, and comment below. Backhand index pointing right. What would you do if you discovered betrayal on your wedding night? Well, let's begin. Everyone said it was the most beautiful wedding they had ever attended. They said it with awe in their voices, the kind reserved for moments people believed would be remembered forever. The ceremony took place beneath a canopy of white roses and soft golden lights, arranged so perfectly it felt less like reality and more like a carefully curated dream. Gentle music floated through the air as guests whispered to one another, already convinced they were witnessing the beginning of a flawless love story. Amara stood at the center of it all, her hands trembling just slightly as she held her bouquet. She told herself it was happiness. Her gown fit her like it had been sewn into her skin, delicate lace hugging her waist, the train spilling behind her like a promise she was ready to keep. When she glanced down the aisle and saw Daniel waiting for her, everything else faded into background noise. He looked calm, confident, certain. That steadiness made her feel safe. Daniel Cole had a way of making people believe in him. His smile was easy, his voice warm, his presence grounding. Friends trusted him. Business partners admired him. And Amara, she loved him with the kind of faith that didn't question. When their eyes met, he smiled at her as though she was the only person in the room. She smiled back, her heart racing. This is it, she thought. This is forever. The officiant spoke, but Amara barely heard the words. Her mind was filled with memories. Their first conversation, their late-night talks, the way Daniel always knew when to pull her closer in a crowded room. She remembered how he had promised her stability, honesty, protection. "I will always choose you," he had said once. She believed him. When it came time for vows, Daniel didn't hesitate. His voice was strong, steady, practiced. He spoke of devotion and loyalty, of partnership and trust. Each word fell perfectly into place, like he had rehearsed them not just with his mouth, but with his soul. Amara's eyes burned with unshed tears. Her own vows were softer, more fragile, but they were real. She spoke of love that endured, of standing together in truth, of building something unbreakable. When she finished, Daniel squeezed her hands gently, as if to reassure her. The kiss was met with applause. Cheers echoed. Cameras flashed. People rose to their feet. They were married. At the reception, laughter filled the air. Glasses clinked. Guests pulled them into conversations, hugs, photographs. Amara moved through it all like she was floating, light and untouchable. Daniel never left her side. He whispered jokes in her ear, complimented her dress, brushed invisible lint from her shoulder. To everyone watching, he was the perfect groom, attentive, loving, present. No one questioned him. And neither did she. That night, when the celebration finally ended, they retreated to a luxury hotel suite overlooking the city. The room glowed softly, candles flickering, rose petals scattered across the bed. It felt intimate, sacred, like the world had shrunk down to just the two of them. Amara excused herself to the bathroom to remove her makeup, her cheeks aching from smiling all day. She looked at herself in the mirror. Wife. The word sent a thrill through her chest. She reached up and touched her ring, turning it slowly around her finger, admiring the way it caught the light. It felt heavy but comforting, permanent. From the bedroom, she heard Daniel moving around, humming quietly to himself. The sound made her smile. She splashed water on her face. Then she heard it. Vibration. Soft brief. A pause. Another vibration followed. Then another. Amara dried her hands slowly, her curiosity harmless, unthreatening. Daniel's phone rarely buzzed this late, and she assumed it was probably a congratulatory message from a friend or family member who had stayed up too late celebrating. She stepped back into the bedroom. Daniel was in the shower now, water running, steam rising beneath the bathroom door. His phone lay on the nightstand, lit up, waiting. Amara glanced at it casually and froze. The screen displayed a message preview. Single line, one sentence. And in that instant, the perfect day cracked. The phone vibrated again. Amara didn't reach for it immediately. She stood still at the foot of the bed, her fingers curling slowly around the fabric of her gown. For a brief, fragile second, she told herself there was a reasonable explanation. A drunk friend. A misplaced message. Something harmless that would allow the night to continue exactly as it was meant to. The screen lit up once more. Unknown contact. I can still taste you. Come back. Her breath caught in her throat. The room felt suddenly too quiet, too large. The soft glow of the lamps blurred as her vision narrowed. Her heartbeat pounding so loudly she was sure it could be heard over the sound of the shower running behind the bathroom door. Taste you. The words didn't register all at once. They arrived slowly, each one landing like a small, deliberate wound. Amara stared at the screen, waiting for it to disappear, waiting for her mind to correct it into something less devastating. Didn't. Another vibration. This time she felt it through the mattress, through her bones. Your wife asleep yet? The world tilted. Amara sat down hard on the edge of the bed, her knees suddenly weak. Her wedding ring felt heavier than it had just moments before, pressing into her skin like a reminder she hadn't asked for. Her first instinct was denial. This isn't real, she told herself. This can't be real. Daniel was in the bathroom. Daniel, who had just promised her forever. Daniel, who had kissed her hands during the vows. Who had whispered how lucky he was to have her. Daniel, who had looked so sincere that morning it never crossed her mind to doubt him. Her fingers hovered over the phone. She shouldn't touch it. She knew that. Crossing that line would change everything. But something deeper than fear pushed her forward. A quiet, instinctive need for truth, no matter how sharp it might be. She picked up the phone. It was warm. Her hands shook as she turned it over, the lock screen glowing softly. The password field appeared, blinking patiently, unaware of the chaos unfolding on the other side. Amara swallowed. She entered the code. Her birthday. The phone unlocked instantly. A bitter laugh rose in her chest, but it never made it out. It stayed trapped there, sour and hollow. She opened the messages. There were more than she expected. Dozens. Scrolling felt like falling, each swipe pulling her deeper into something dark and bottomless. Messages stretched back weeks, months. Conversations filled with inside jokes, late-night confessions, longing, frustration, and desire. Photos loaded slowly, as if the phone itself was reluctant to reveal them. Daniel half-dressed. Daniel in unfamiliar lighting. Daniel smiling in a way she had only ever seen when he thought no one was watching. Her chest tightened painfully. The timestamp stole what little air she had left. Earlier that evening, while she was getting ready, while she was laughing with bridesmaids, while she was walking toward him down the aisle. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened screen, eyes wide, face pale, lips parted in silent disbelief. She pressed a hand to her mouth. No tears came. Not yet. She scrolled further, desperate now, hoping for something, anything that would tell her this was a mistake. But the more she read, the clearer it became. This wasn't a one-time lapse. This wasn't confusion or weakness. This was a life she had never been invited into. A name appeared repeatedly. Lena. Amara said it aloud, tasting it the way the messages suggested Daniel once had. The shower turned off. The sound jolted her. Amara locked the phone and placed it exactly where it had been, aligning it carefully on the nightstand. She stood, smoothing her dress with slow, deliberate movements. Her heart was racing, but her face was calm. Come. The bathroom door opened, steam spilling into the room. Daniel stepped out, relaxed, towel around his waist, completely unaware that the foundation of his marriage had just collapsed. He smiled at her. "Everything okay?" he asked casually. Amara returned the smile. "Perfect," she said. And in that moment, something inside her hardened. Not into rage. Not into grief, but into resolve. Because the woman who had walked down the aisle that morning believing in love had just disappeared. That night Daniel slept. He slept the way people do when they believe they are safe, breathing slow and steady, his body heavy with satisfaction and certainty. His arm lay draped casually across the bed, close enough to touch her, close enough to remind Amara that only hours ago she had trusted him without hesitation. Amara lay beside him, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark now, the soft lights extinguished, the city outside reduced to a distant glow seeping through the curtains. Every sound felt amplified, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint rush of traffic far below, the quiet rhythm of Daniel's breathing. She did not close her eyes. Each time she tried, images forced their way in. The messages, photos, the words that refused to fade no matter how tightly she squeezed her thoughts shut. Taste you. Come back. She turned her head slightly and looked at Daniel. His face was peaceful, almost gentle in sleep. There was no trace of guilt there. No sign of the betrayal that now lived like a weight in her chest. For a moment, anger threatened to rise, hot and violent, clawing for release. But it didn't take hold. Instead, something colder settled in its place. Amara slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him. She wrapped herself in a robe and padded into the bathroom, closing the door without a sound. The mirror greeted her with harsh honesty under the bright lights. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Her makeup was mostly gone, but traces of mascara lingered beneath her eyes, smudged and tired. Her hair, once styled perfectly, now fell loosely around her shoulders. The wedding ring glinted under the light, innocent and accusing all at once. She stared at it. A few hours ago, it had symbolized devotion. Now it felt like a brand. Amara leaned closer to the mirror, studying her reflection as if searching for answers hidden in her own face. Her eyes were different, darker somehow, sharper, as though they had learned something her heart hadn't yet caught up to. "How did I not see it?" she whispered. The mirror didn't answer. She turned on the sink and splashed cold water onto her face, gripping the porcelain edge as she steadied herself. Her hands trembled, but her breathing slowly evened out. Crying would come later. Right now she needed clarity. She thought about confronting him, imagined shaking him awake, throwing the phone at his chest, demanding explanations that would inevitably turn into lies. She pictured his face twisting into shock, then guilt, then justification. "It didn't mean anything. I was confused. I never meant to hurt you." She knew the script. And she knew how that story would end. With her questioning herself, with him asking for forgiveness he didn't deserve, with the truth becoming something blurred and softened. Well, Amara straightened. She wasn't going to give him that comfort. She returned to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, watching him sleep for a long moment. Then, carefully, she lay back down beside him, allowing his arm to fall across her waist as it had before. She did not flinch. She did not pull away. She stared ahead, memorizing the feeling of being touched by someone she no longer trusted. By morning, Daniel woke refreshed, stretching lazily, a smile tugging at his lips when he saw her. "Morning, Mrs. Cole," he said warmly. Amara smiled back. She made breakfast. She laughed at his jokes. She listened as he spoke about their future, their honeymoon plans, the life they would build together. She nodded. She agreed. And with every word she observed. She watched how easily he lied, how effortlessly he slipped between versions of himself. She paid attention to his habits, his tells, the way he avoided certain topics, the way his phone never left his side, the way his tone shifted when he spoke about work trips. Information, she realized, was power. That afternoon, while Daniel showered again, Amara stood before the mirror one last time. She adjusted her posture, lifted her chin, practiced the soft, trusting smile she knew he expected. The mirror reflected a woman reborn. Not broken, not weak, just awake. "I see you now," she said quietly. And in that reflection, she made a promise. She would not rush. She would not react. She would not waste this knowledge on a moment of anger. If Daniel believed he had married a woman who would never notice the cracks in his stories, she would let him believe it. Now, if anyone had asked Daniel when his marriage began to feel perfect, he would have said the weeks after the wedding. Amara was calm, effortless, understanding. She never questioned him, never demanded explanations. She didn't complain about late nights or unanswered calls. When he traveled for work, she kissed him goodbye with the same soft smile and wished him success. To Daniel it felt like peace. To Amara it was discipline. Each morning, she woke before him and lay still, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. She memorized it the way one memorizes a pattern. Useful, predictable. When he stirred, she shifted naturally, playing her role without error. She became observant in ways he never noticed. Daniel talked more than he realized. Over breakfast he mentioned meetings, names, places. Amara stored every detail away, building a quiet archive in her mind. She learned the difference between his truths and his rehearsed versions of them. At night she watched his hands. When he lied, his thumb tapped lightly against his index finger. When he felt guilty, he overcompensated with affection. When he felt confident, he grew careless. Amara noticed everything. She did not search his phone again. She didn't need to. Instead, she watched how he guarded it, how it never left his reach, how notifications were silenced, how he angled the screen away from her without thinking. His behavior told her more than messages ever could. She filled her days with normalcy. She hosted dinners, attended events on his arm, smiled at colleagues who praised Daniel's devotion, his good fortune, his perfect wife. Amara accepted their compliments graciously, her laughter light and convincing. Inside she felt almost nothing. It wasn't numbness, it was focus. Late at night, while Daniel slept, she researched quietly. Financial literacy blogs, business registries, legal rights. She learned how assets moved, how companies hid losses, how reputations were built and destroyed. Knowledge was no longer curiosity. It was preparation. And then there was Lena. The name lingered in Amara's thoughts like an unresolved question. She didn't rush toward it. She waited until her emotions settled, until the ache dulled into something manageable. When she finally looked Lena up, she did so calmly. Lena was younger than Amara expected. Beautiful in an unpolished way. Her social media painted a life filled with longing disguised as confidence. Cryptic quotes, late-night posts, photographs taken from flattering angles but never close enough to feel intimate. A woman waiting. Amara studied her carefully, not with hatred, but with understanding. She didn't blame Lena. Daniel had lied to both of them. As days turned into weeks, Amara subtly adjusted her behavior. She asked questions that seemed harmless, comments that encouraged Daniel to speak freely. Each time he lied smoothly, she nodded, letting him believe his mask was intact. It was almost impressive. Almost. One evening as they lay in bed, Daniel sighed contentedly and said, "I'm lucky, you know. You don't make things complicated." Amara smiled into the darkness. "Love shouldn't be complicated," she replied softly. He kissed her shoulder, satisfied. He didn't see the way her eyes remained open long after. She began documenting, not obsessively but strategically. Inconsistencies, patterns, not evidence for confrontation, but leverage for later. Revenge, she understood now, wasn't loud. It was patient. Sometimes in the quiet moments, a flicker of sadness would rise. Grief for the woman she had been, for the future she thought she was building. But Amara allowed herself only a moment to feel it before setting it aside. Feelings were dangerous. Control was safer. Standing once again before the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The softness was still there, but beneath it lived something sharper, something deliberate. "I'm still your wife," she whispered to her reflection. "But I'm no longer yours." And somewhere, deep beneath Daniel's carefully constructed life, the first cracks began to form, though he didn't feel them yet. Not even close. Amara waited, That was the hardest part. Not acting on impulse, not rushing toward relief or justice. She understood now that timing mattered more than intention. Revenge, if done too quickly, revealed itself. And she needed Daniel unaware, comfortable, careless. So she waited until the anger softened into something useful. The first move didn't begin with Daniel. It began with Lena. Amara sat alone at the dining table one evening, her laptop open, the house quiet except for the hum of appliances. Daniel was away on another work trip. She didn't ask questions. She already knew where he was going. She created a new email account. Simple, neutral, forgettable. No name. No clues. Then she stared at the blank message field for a long moment. She didn't write accusations. She didn't write threats. Instead, she wrote empathy. I don't know you, but I think you're hurting. And I think the man you love isn't being honest with you. Amara reread it twice, then hit send before doubt could interfere. She didn't expect an immediate reply. But it came the next morning. Who is this? Short. Defensive. Afraid. Amara smiled faintly. She answered carefully. Someone who's been lied to too. I'm not here to judge you. I just think you deserve the truth. Hours passed. Then another message arrived. Longer this time, edges softened by curiosity. You don't know him like I do. He says things are complicated. Complicated. The word made Amara pause. She remembered Daniel saying the same thing once. About work, about people, about life. He used it whenever he wanted sympathy without accountability. Amara responded gently. That's what men say when they want time without responsibility. There was silence after that. 2 days passed. Then 3. Amara didn't push. She understood the psychology of doubt. If you pressed too hard, people defended the lie because it was familiar. You had to let them arrive at the truth themselves. On the 4th day, Lena replied. He told me he loved me. Amara closed her eyes briefly. She chose her words with surgical care. He told me the same thing once. Love shouldn't make you feel small or unsure. That message broke something open. Lena began to talk. Not all at once, but in fragments. Late-night confessions, hesitant questions, moments of vulnerability she clearly hadn't shared with anyone else. She spoke about waiting, about promises delayed, about feeling like a secret instead of a choice. Amara listened. She never insulted Daniel, never exposed herself, never rushed Lena toward anger. She asked questions instead. Does he make time for you? Do his actions match his words? What happens when you ask for clarity? Slowly, Lena began to hear herself. And what she heard frightened her. Meanwhile, Amara continued playing her role at home flawlessly. When Daniel returned from his trips, she welcomed him warmly, never hinting at suspicion. He relaxed around her, relieved by her calm acceptance. He didn't notice that she asked fewer questions now. He didn't notice that she watched him more closely than ever. One evening, Daniel mentioned Lena casually, without using her name. She's just someone from the past, he said dismissively. I should have cut ties earlier. Amara nodded sympathetically. Sometimes letting go is hard, she said. Daniel kissed her cheek, reassured. That night, Lena sent another message. I think he's lying to me. I think I've been lying to myself. Amara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the turning point. She replied simply. You're not weak for believing someone. You're strong for questioning them. After that, Lena changed. She stopped responding immediately. Stopped asking Daniel for reassurance. Stopped rearranging her life around his availability. Daniel noticed. He complained to Amara about drama and emotional exhaustion, unaware that the balance he relied on was shifting. Amara listened patiently. Inside, she felt something unfamiliar. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Control. Because Lena wasn't just pulling away. She was waking up. And once someone wakes up, they can never unsee the truth. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. First, Daniel blamed stress. Work had been demanding lately. Deadlines stacking up, negotiations stretching thin. He told himself that was why things felt off. Why conversations didn't flow as easily. Why people paused before answering his calls. Amara noticed the shift before he did. Started subtly. A meeting postponed without explanation. A client who responded with polite distance instead of enthusiasm. Daniel brushed it off at dinner, laughing lightly as he recounted the inconveniences. Just bad timing, he said. It'll sort itself out. Amara nodded, cutting her food with steady hands. But she was already seeing the pattern. Lena's silence came next. Daniel checked his phone more often now. His confidence giving way to irritation. He'd type out messages, delete them, try again. When replies didn't come, his jaw tightened. She's being dramatic, he muttered one evening. Amara tilted her head. Have you asked her what she needs? He scoffed. I shouldn't have to. The answer revealed more than he intended. Daniel was used to control. Used to people orbiting around his wants, his schedule, his convenience. When that gravity weakened, it unsettled him deeply. Days passed. The house felt heavier, quieter. Amara remained unchanged. She laughed when appropriate. She listened without judgment. She offered comfort without solutions. Daniel mistook her steadiness for loyalty, never realizing it was observation. One afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than expected. His tie was loosened, his expression strained. They're hesitating, he said abruptly, dropping his briefcase by the door. The board. They want to reevaluate. Amara poured him a glass of water and handed it to him calmly. Why? She asked. He shook his head. No reason. Just rumors, I guess. Rumors. The word echoed in her mind. Because that was exactly what had begun to circulate. Not loud accusations, not direct confrontations, but whispers. Doubt carried gently from one conversation to the next. Raised eyebrow here. Careful distance there. Reputations didn't collapse overnight. They eroded. And Daniel felt it happening. At night he grew restless. He paced the bedroom, checked his phone compulsively, sighed heavily as though burdened by invisible weight. When he slept, it was shallow, broken by uneasy dreams. Amara lay beside him, awake. She listened as he murmured half-formed worries in his sleep. Names, deals, apologies. Apologies. To people who were no longer listening. One evening, he turned to her suddenly, eyes searching. Do you think people are talking about me? He asked. Amara met his gaze evenly. People always talk, she said gently. The question is why. He frowned. I haven't done anything wrong. She didn't argue. Silence was more powerful. Soon Daniel's calls went unanswered more frequently. Invitations stopped coming. A project he was confident would secure his next promotion stalled without explanation. He grew defensive. Everyone's acting strange, he complained. Like they know something I don't. Amara reached for his hand and squeezed it softly. Then maybe it's time to be honest, she said. He pulled his hand away. With who? The question hung between them. With Lena, he was desperate now. Sending long messages, promises, sudden declarations of love. But Lena no longer responded with hope. She asked questions he couldn't answer. She demanded clarity he wasn't prepared to give. She was no longer the waiting woman. She was awake. Daniel felt it slipping through his fingers. And fear replaced arrogance. One night, after yet another unanswered call, Daniel slammed his phone down on the table. I don't understand, he snapped. Everything was fine. Amara looked at him calmly. Was it? She asked. The question unsettled him. He stared at her as though seeing her for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But it passed quickly, replaced by frustration directed outward. He didn't see the truth. Not yet. But the foundation of his life, built on secrets and convenience, was cracking beneath his feet. And Amara, she watched, she waited. Because the unraveling had begun. And once it starts, there is no way to stop it. Amara planned the anniversary celebration with precision. To everyone else, it looked romantic. An intimate gathering marking 1 year of marriage. Beautiful venue. Soft lighting. Music that whispered elegance rather than demand attention. Guests received invitations promising gratitude, reflection, and love. No one suspected anything more. Daniel certainly didn't. He was relieved, if anything. The weeks leading up to the event had been exhausting. Business troubles, personal tensions, a lingering sense that something in his life had slipped out of alignment. The anniversary felt like a reset. A public reassurance that all was well. He told himself that. Amara watched him choose his suit, adjust his tie, smile at his reflection. "Thank you for doing this," he said, kissing her cheek. "I think we needed it." She returned the smile. "So did I," she said. The room filled slowly. Family members laughed. Friends embraced. Colleagues exchanged polite greetings that stopped just short of warmth. Daniel noticed it. The subtle distance, the careful glances. But he dismissed it as nerves. Amara moved through the space gracefully, accepting compliments, directing staff, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She looked radiant, composed, confident, untouchable. When the music softened, she stepped forward and took the microphone. The room quieted. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice calm, steady. "This past year has taught me a lot about love, trust, and the importance of honesty." Daniel smiled proudly. People nodded. Amara continued. "When Daniel and I married, we promised transparency. We promised to choose truth, even when it was uncomfortable." Daniel's smile faltered. She gestured gently toward the large screen behind her. "I believe anniversaries aren't just about celebration," she said. "They're about reflection." The screen lit up. At first it was harmless. Photos from their wedding day, smiling faces, shared moments. Guests relaxed, some even wiping away sentimental tears. Then the images changed. Messages appeared. Text conversations. Names blurred, dates clear. Phrases froze the room into silence. "Can still taste you. Your wife asleep yet?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Daniel's face drained of color. Amara didn't raise her voice. She didn't rush. She let the truth speak for itself. Photos followed. Timestamps visible, proof undeniable. Gasps filled the air. Daniel turned to her, panic sharp in his eyes. "Amara," he started. She raised a hand. "I found out on our wedding night," she said calmly. "While I was still wearing my dress." The room went completely still. "I didn't scream. I didn't confront you. I stayed." She turned to face him fully now. "Not because I was weak," she continued, her voice unwavering. "But because I wanted you to feel exactly as secure as I once did." Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. Faces turned toward him, friends, family, colleagues, all seeing him clearly for the first time. Amara addressed the room again. "I believe everyone deserves informed consent. In business, in love, in life. Tonight isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty." She looked back at Daniel. "You built your life on lies," she said softly. "And now you don't get to decide how they come undone." Someone stood abruptly. Another guest whispered something sharp. The room buzzed with shock, disbelief, judgment. Daniel looked small. Suppose. For the first time since Amara had known him. She handed the microphone back to the host and stepped away, her part finished. Daniel tried to follow her. "Please," he whispered urgently, grabbing her arm. "We can fix this." She looked at his hand on her skin. Then at his face. "You had a year," she said quietly. "And you wasted it." She pulled away. As she walked toward the exit, the weight she'd been carrying for months lifted with every step. The noise behind her blurred. Questions, accusations, consequences beginning to take shape. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because the truth, once released, could never be gathered again. And Daniel's world. It was already falling apart. Amara walked out into the night alone. The air was cool, grounding. For the first time in months, She felt her breath reach all the way down into her lungs. The noise from the celebration faded behind her. Voices raised in disbelief, questions she no longer needed to answer, a life unraveling without her. She didn't cry. Not then. She stepped into a waiting car and closed the door gently, as if sealing something final behind her. By morning the story had spread. Messages flooded her phone, some filled with support, others with shock, a few with disbelief. She didn't respond. She turned the device face down and poured herself a cup of coffee, sitting by the window as sunlight spilled across the room. He felt quiet. Daniel's downfall came swiftly after that. Clients withdrew. Contracts dissolved. People who once praised his charm now questioned his integrity. Trust, she learned, was a currency. Once devalued, impossible to restore. He tried to reach her. Emails. Long apologies filled with regret that came too late. He spoke of therapy, of mistakes, of love he claimed had been real. Amara read none of it. She didn't need closure from the person who had created the wound. Lena reached out instead. Her message was simple. Thank you for telling me the truth. I left him. I'm starting over. Amara read it twice. She replied with only one sentence. I'm proud of you. That was enough. Weeks passed. Amara moved out quietly, efficiently. Lawyers handled the rest. She reclaimed her name, her time, her future. The ring came off one morning without ceremony, placed carefully into a drawer where it no longer held power. She began to rebuild, not in haste but with intention. She traveled, took long walks, reconnected with parts of herself she had abandoned in the pursuit of being chosen. She learned to sit with silence without fear, to enjoy her own company without apology. Sometimes she caught her reflection in mirrors and barely recognized the woman staring back, not because she was broken, but because she was stronger. Untethered. Daniel faded into a cautionary tale. A man who had everything and believed he deserved more. A man undone not by revenge, but by truth revealed at the right moment. Amara didn't celebrate his ruin. She simply moved forward. One evening, months later, she stood on her balcony watching the city lights flicker below. She thought about the girl who had walked down the aisle believing in forever. She felt tenderness for her. She didn't know, Amara whispered. But she survived. And she had. Love, she realized, wasn't about sacrifice without limits. It wasn't about loyalty to someone who betrayed you. Real love, whether for another person or yourself, required honesty above all else. She smiled then, not because everything was perfect, but because she was free. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your strength, or if you've ever loved someone who didn't deserve your loyalty, subscribe to LovexRomancexRevenge for more stories where love meets consequence. Like this video if you believe truth always finds its way to the surface. And tell us in the comments, was her silence the strongest form of revenge? Until next time, guard your heart, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes walking away is the loudest victory.